Hello everyone, my name is PuppyJoe and today I would like to chat about tutorials. I dislike them. Kind of, anyway. As a player, I do find it exhausting when tutorials are just drawn out sections of dialogue, a bucket of uninspiring text on a screen, tirelessly reminding the player on what to do even if I've done it 100 times, spamming the next button on a prompt for the most basic function, or asking you to press a giant aggressively vivid red, yellow, green, or some other color appropriate buttons. The list goes on. And I say this, but even some of my all-time favorite video games break my idealistic rules on what a good tutorial can be. I'm sure if I ever make a game, I'll break them to some extent myself. That's because I might understand why breaking these rules sometimes needs to be the case. A developer is trying to teach millions of very different-minded individuals how to play their game. How do you pick one language that will guarantee work for everybody? It's a difficult problem to solve, but there are good, poetic, and immersive ways to do this without completely disrespecting the atmosphere, the game, or the player. That's why, in contrast to not liking tutorials, my favorite thing about Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild is the tutorial. Let's get into that. But first, let's get on the same page. What is a tutorial? Let's define it for the video. A tutorial is a moment in the game where you, the player, learn about controls or mechanics to execute certain functions. Example, press A to jump. And finally, a disclaimer. There will be spoilers if you still have yet to leave the Great Plateau. However, if you have left the Great Plateau, then there should be no spoilers for you in this video. Okay, let's proceed. I do feel there are a few good use cases of the tutorial system in Breath of the Wild. A lot is left up to discoverability, such as exploring the world or a shrine and discovering new ways to use your toolsets. Also, whenever there's a tutorial prompt, they sometimes kinda use the same visual language of the Sheikah Slate, and other times it doesn't quite feel the same way. However, these are not the tutorials I would like to discuss. I want to talk about the old man, and to do that, we have to go to the very beginning. It's story time. I, as the character Link, start the game inside a mystical, dark cave. I hear a voice, pick up a slate, grab some clothes, and out the door I go. The door slowly opens and reveals to me the great land of Hyrule. Brilliant and beautiful. The colors, lights, wind, visuals, music are all stunning. Alone in this new world, I'm ready to go on an adventure. As I walk down the path, I see a strange old man. I notice a baked apple at his feet and out of curiosity decide to pick it up, and he quickly yells at me. Jokingly, of course. He's curious to see me here and gives me a little lay of the land, even drops some foreshadowing. After the introduction, he mentions having the need to make more apples because I took his. As a curious player, I feel the need to try to do the same. A good 20 minutes go by. I begin to start exploring and make my way to the objective, and for the sake of brevity, I'm going to be skipping over some of the events in the Great Plateau. So, as I descend the newly risen tower, the old man paraglides down to me. Remarks on this interesting event, gives me some more backstory of the land, and tasks me with seeking out shrines in search of a treasure. In exchange, I will acquire the paraglider to continue exploring the great lands below. This guy is speaking my language. After my first spelunky mission, he appears again with a little bit more backstory, and for what it's worth, I'm genuinely enjoying this exposition, cleverly disguised as tales from a rambling old man. It's just broken up enough so I'm not overwhelmed and exhausted by the information. It also feels justified as my character has amnesia. I'm getting off topic. He continues to give me instructions on how to use the slate in my possession to track down more shrines, all to get the paraglider. Deal, let's go. After raiding another shrine, the old man does not come to me, so I feel like I want to show him my progress and decide to make my way to where I last saw him. By the fire on top of the hill. It's late and I can hear crickets as I walk through the plateau. The way the sound continues to add to the ambiance is great. I'm believing it all. I approach the old man, but it looks like it's past his bedtime. He's in a nice deep sleep, but I wake him up anyway. He wakes up and tells me how cold it can get. Sometimes, it's nice to relax and warm up by the fire, passing the time and getting lost for hours in the dancing flames. He invites me to sit with him, so I try to interact with the fire, and to my surprise, I can pass the time here. As I continue to explore the Great Plateau, I notice a pillar of smoke in the woods. Out of curiosity, I go to investigate. At first, other than a fire, no one appears to be at the campsite, but on the edge, I notice the old man sneaking behind a tree. I quietly approach, but he quickly tells me he is hunting and to keep quiet. I should be sneaking in order to not scare off the prey. At this point, the game prompts me with a button choice I could have done without, or maybe something more immersive. However, let's not get sidetracked. I sneak and talk to him again, and he proceeds to tell me about hunting, gives me some tips, and finally admits to how tired he is. He goes back to camp to rest and leaves me to my own devices. If anyone knows me, sneaking and using a bow is my cup of tea. I spent so much time doing this. I loved it. I made my way back to camp to show off my spoils, and he begins to encourage me to cook the ingredients. He makes some fun conversations and instructs me to use the pot to bring it all together. I gave it a shot, and he's not overly impressed with my first attempt, but encourages me to keep trying different ingredients for different results. You might be thinking that I'm just rambling at this point, but I promise it's all going to come together in the end. You see, by now I was so engaged with this old man, I began to look for any signs for him as I continued treasure hunting to earn his paraglider. I then stumbled across a cabin. This is the first sign of civilization other than meeting the old man. I began to snoop around and no one appears to be home. I noticed a book on the table and decided to give it a read. Quickly, I made the connection that this is the old man's cabin. Why wouldn't it be? I guess I was excited at the possibility of meeting some new people. Either way, he talks about a missing ingredient to his recipe. Seafood. It's fish, right? There's fish in this game? And if I do this, I could get new armor. Interesting. I should go and find fish. I proceed to swipe a shiny new axe and head out. As I leave the cabin, I see the old man far off in the distance. I approach, and he begins to talk about chopping down trees. How it's important to pull your hip into it. He digresses as he once again admits his old age and goes back off to the cabin to rest. Left alone, I proceed to try. I thought I was just going to be collecting some wood, but to my surprise, with a crack, the tree comes crashing down to the ground. 1 + 1 = 2, I cross the ravine, dispatch of some baddies, and feel that I must now climb this giant wall. It might get cold up there. Maybe the old man's doublet will come in handy. So I need to find some fish, and I'm only aware of one water source in the game. Fish acquired. Definitely more elegant ways to do this, like with a bow, or more bombs. I rush back to the cabin and proceed to make the dish to show it off to the old man. Am I trying to get his doublet, or do I just want his approval at this point? Regardless of my snooping in his diary, he is very pleased with the results. I am rewarded with my first clothing armor piece in the game, other than the simple clothes I found in the cave. Eventually, I complete the last shrine, and the old man paraglides to me once more. He proceeds to instruct me to meet him at a specific location on the map, and then he disappears. What? I knew or thought him to be magical, maybe a sage of some sort, so I guess this makes sense. I do a little bit of simple geometry, and it's pretty apparent I need to go back to the temple. I decided to take the easy road back and teleport to the cave where it all began. As I leave the cave and once more become breathless with how beautiful Hyrule is, I realize I'm so close to obtaining the paraglider to start exploring all of the world below. However, I'm taken back. The old man isn't at his usual spot. Of course not. Why would he be? I need to meet him at the temple. I just always expected him to be here. I ascend the temple and see my friend waiting for me. It's time to finally claim my reward and leap off to begin a new exciting adventure. Then the surprise. He tells me he is more than just an old man. Gives me a bit more backstory. Rewards me with the paraglider, but then disappears. By this point, my jaw has dropped. I had a feeling he was magical, maybe a sage, but a king, the king. More importantly, he was a ghost? He's gone? Where did he go? I started this world and knew nobody. Literally. I have amnesia. As I wandered the Great Plateau, he was there along the way, teaching me, guiding me. He taught me about the history of the land, the shrines, the map, the slate, how to rest, sneak, hunt, cook, chop trees, inspires me to fish, and poof! Gone. Faded away. I have this new paraglider, but I lost my only friend. My teacher. I've long waited to go explore the land beyond the plateau, but instead of going into the new unknown, I wanted to know I could still visit him after I leave. I went back to the cave and he's not by his fire. I noticed there's no more pillar of smoke in the forest and he's not there either. It's okay, he'll be at his cabin, that's his home, surely. I approached the cabin and nothing. He's not resting by the fire, not chopping wood, not inside, he's gone. I reread his diary looking for a clue and found his last message. He apologizes for not disclosing the full truth. However, it's time now that I must go and save his daughter, the Princess of Hyrule, and he has faith that I'll do okay on my own. Call me over-attached, nostalgic, sentimental, emotionally fragile, sure. I'm all of those things, but I really took it to heart that this stranger-turned-friend was teaching me how to thrive in this world. I was looking forward to explore new things, but now I feel sad and a bit timid. I'm excited, but mourning. I approached the edge of the Great Plateau. My friend is no longer here to guide me, and now I have to go off on my own to continue my quest. With that thought, I jump. A figurative bird being forced to leave his nest. As I glide, I reminisce on the old man and the kindness he showed me. My feet touch the ground and I'm now just as on my own as I was in the beginning. However, the path before me will lead me to new allies, new friends, new enemies, and new challenges. I keep the memory of my first friend with me, and proceed onward to my next adventure. Come on, PuppyJoe, you're crazy. It's just a game, dude, and you're right. It is. However, for me, the most important part of a game is when it successfully creates an immersive experience, an immersive story. I do feel video games have a few unique challenges compared to some other mediums of storytelling, such as books or movies. Instead of watching or reading a story play out, you, the player, are an active participant in the narrative. A developer's responsibility in a video game should not only be to make an engaging and fun game, but also to completely immerse the player in the world and characters around them. And this can be done with several different types of games, not just adventure games. You can find it in MMORPGs, racing, FPS, party games, and etc. Designers will just need to use different techniques to accomplish the task at hand. There are also a lot of easy outs to game design, such as having the player read the manual, drawn out dialogue to over-explain things, constant reminders on how to perform a basic function, obviously disguising tutorials in a simple training room or something similar and transparent, and the list goes on. However, if you can teach a player how to grow and become better at a game by using the narrative, world, mechanics, and characters available to you, then you can successfully make the player's experience way more immersive. And yes, Breath of the Wild did break some of my own personal rules on how to teach someone to play a video game. However, they've also done something I've never experienced in the games I've played. They hit a lot of game-teaching mechanics in the disguise of a tired, lonely old man who was just going about his day. And the player's own sense of discovery made those teachings available to them. It wasn't forced, it wasn't crammed, it was just there, waiting for the player to find. And with that said, great job, Breath of the Wild. Not to mention all the other cool things this game does, but good job. This is why this tutorial is my favorite thing about Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, and to date, my favorite tutorial I've ever played. I'm genuinely curious to hear your thoughts. Do you feel I'm overreaching? Maybe you feel this didn't work for you the same way it worked for me. What did work for you? What didn't? Do you have anything you want to add or expand upon? We all respond to things differently, and I'm curious to hear about your opinion in the comments below. Let me know what are your favorite things, and are there any other games you want videos on next? I'm down to chat. Thanks for hanging out, I appreciate it, and I'll catch you next time. Ciao! For all the things I like about this game, I do not like this chest. Or more importantly, I don't like this one. Maybe I should do a video on that.